So in Photoshop, we have this feature called clipping mask, where you can kind of mask away the other part and color in basically an existing layer. So we also have that in Krita, but it's a different type of workflow. So what you want to do in Krita is I have this layer here, right? And it only has that yellow ball. First, you'd want to group it. You can do that by Control G. Now it's in a group, and you can add another layer on top of that. Add like brighter yellow. Now, when I turn this on, this is called alpha inheritance. This little A icon here, turn that on. It's gonna act like that clipping mask in Photoshop, where it doesn't show the outside part. So that's for clipping mask, and in Krita it's called alpha inheritance. Say you want to mask away certain parts of a group or a layer. If you want to mask away, you can add a transparency mask. And basically it's kind of like in Photoshop, say we have two layers, this one and this one. So this one is on top. If I paint black over here, it's gonna show the background. So in Krita, it's the same thing, that if you paint black, you're kind of erasing it, but you can turn this on and off, which is a non-destructive workflow for painting. So that's for transparency masks, clipping masks, or alpha inheritance. Another thing is adjustment layers. So if I want to add the brightness contrast adjustment layer and mask away the other part, I can do that over here using this added mask on the adjustment layer. We have a similar thing in Krita called the filter mask, and basically the same thing. Notice it's under a layer now because I have the layer selected, but I can move it inside this group so that it affects the whole group. But now I can't move it outside the group because this only works inside groups. If you want to affect the entire layer stack, you need to go over here to the drop down menu again and add filter layer. That's the difference between a filter layer and a filter mask. The filter layer is for the entire layer stack. So if you want to affect the background as well, instead of just this group of ball, you need to use the filter layer. This again. So since I had the group selected, it added that on the group, but I can move it outside the group now. Unlike this filter mask that I have, which I can't move outside the group. I can move it to other layers, but not outside the group. So now this has its own mask, so you can paint directly on top of this to show which parts you want to be affected or not. So it's kind of like the same with in Photoshop, where the adjustment layer already has its own mask when you add it. Another quick tip, since you're here, I'd assume you'd be coloring your artwork, so I just want to share a coloring technique which Krita has. So I have my line art selected, go to filter, start Jimmy Cutie, and you have a bunch of options here when you search for colorize. The quickest way is this one, the autofill. If you're you just want like a quick coloring of your line art and you're gonna worry about it later. The other one is smart coloring, which is the one I'd recommend because autofill has like a bug when you increase the tolerance to gap. So here you can see that it's not filling in this area, but if I go to smart coloring, I reset this, I can increase the contour detection. That way it would fill that in. It would consider that as like a closed area, unlike the other filter. You can also change different settings over here. Of course, I recommend upping the saturation, that way you can see the different color spot. And now if I press OK, I'm gonna have this two layers. So this is the part where it gets a bit buggy because over here I actually have another part outside of the canvas. So this is the part where I didn't see in the original layer, because the original layer was positioned like this, so I didn't see that since it's outside the canvas. So it's not a big problem. You can avoid that problem by going to image and trim to image size. So now the parts outside the canvas are gonna be erased. So do that again. Jimmy Cutie, Colorizing Lineart, make this 100. Make sure that the points are connecting. You can also increase this rate to make it more connected, but of course if you add it too much, you're gonna start having these problems. So this one is already a good number. It's okay. There we go. Now let's just move it to the center again. You can just select using the contiguous selection tool or similar selection tool and change this to different tones that you'd actually use in your artwork. Say this is a face, even though it's a square, I can choose a skin tone, and maybe this is the shadow area. I can choose a darker skin tone and things like that. So it's like a really quick and easy way to color your line art instead of going over here, lassoing this area and adding a specific tone, and you have these areas where you need to erase because it's outside the shape. You can also color it in like manually, but that would also take time and you would need to erase the bits outside again. So yeah, just a little quick tip when you're coloring. There's this thing called colorizing the filters. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.